Hi, I'm Shannon Simons. I'm the author of Safe House, and we've been reading it a chapter or two at a time and then having a little chat at the end. Feel free to turn it off at the end of the chapter if you're not interested, but what I'm sharing are things that inspired the story and things about survivors that I believe will help you if you're a family member, pastor, or otherwise involved with people. So in chapter 8 and 9, which are the chapters I'm going to read, we've already met Grace. She's the advocate. Hart is the police officer. And Kelly and Emily are involved and engaged in some really dangerous situations. And in these chapters, we get to see a little bit of normal life. And what I will tell you is that it is the funniest little things that happen. And if you don't believe in God, shut me down now, because it's the funniest little things that happen that tell me that there is a God and that He cares about everybody, no matter who they are, no matter what race, religion, creed, no matter what their circumstances. That especially children, especially families, and that the funniest little things have happened over the years to open up conversations with survivors. You know, it's hard to be an advocate and to meet somebody that you've never met before and to talk about this really tough stuff. And so in these chapters, I talk about a way that conversations kind of got started. So if you're wondering how they relate to the story, that's it. So chapter 8, Baytown. Grace's office at the Family Crisis Center was in an old cannery pier in Baytown, Oregon, about 30 minutes north of Mechanicsburg on Highway 101. She crossed the Youngs Bay Bridge and emerged from the fog. Grace was again struck by the beauty of Baytown. It was a melancholy piece of ghostly history that seemed to hang on the sliding land at the mouth of the mighty Columbia River. 19th century Victorian homes perched precariously on streets that steeply climbed the peninsula. She never tired of the unique view. Traveling the main road, through the narrow Baytown street, she eventually turned off onto a gravel road that ended at a pier. Stopping long enough to check for oncoming traffic on the narrow plank, she slowly eased onto the old boards. Running only a few miles per hour, her Jeep began crossing the single-lane plank structure, bumping and bouncing, the hollow sound of the wood making butterflies in her stomach. She hated the narrow little bridge. The pier widened enough for parking in an old cannery, which was now remodeled into offices, restaurants, and a coffee shop. The river ebbed and flowed under the pier, and around the barnacle-covered, mossy posts sunk into its muddy bottom, creating a constant movement with the tide. At 5 after 9, Grace slid open the heavy antique main door, half old wood and half wavy ancient glass. It rolled open on a rusty track. She ran up the wide stairs to the second story where professional offices lined a hallway. Wall-sized windows in the offices on the riverside of the building allowed people to watch the ships go by and see the sea lions up close and personal. The furniture in their office was donated. It was eclectic, funky junk, just trying to be homey and welcoming. Grace entered the reception room calling, "Hi all, honey, I'm home." No one answered. Wondering if she was the first one in, she picked up the phone, collected messages, and let the answering service go for the day. Grace's office was a reflection of Grace. It had yellow, sunny walls to chase away the damp, foggy Baytown gloom, with baby, blue, and white striped overstuffed chairs facing the fantastic view. Her desk was turned to the wall so that she spoke to clients. Her chair was facing them with an open setting instead of across the desk. The clutter of busy life was everywhere. Next to Grace's office was another petite but plump advocate named Karen. She was the exact opposite of everything that Grace was. In her home life, there were no kids, all pets, no serious relationships, all fun. When Grace went nuts over babies, Karen just rolled her eyes and called them party poopers. While Grace ate health food, Karen ate burgers and fries for lunch and smoked like a train. Karen came into Grace's office and sat down with her shirt cut low and her skirts rising high. That's why Grace was surprised to see Karen wearing a CTR ring. "Karen," said Grace, pointing at the ring, "do you know what that stands for?" "Can't think right?" "No," Grace laughed. "It's a church thing. The letters stand for choose the right." "So, I stole it from my college roommate years ago." "No way." Karen was laughing. "You better take it. It might melt on me." "No, I think you should keep it. Maybe you will think twice about stealing." "Or choose the right card," Karen mused. "Very funny." "No, seriously, you take it. I have a lot of rings," Karen said, taking it off, smiling, and holding it out toward Grace. "Thanks, that's sweet. I always wanted one." "Why haven't you had one?" "I bought many for my girls and relatives, just not for me. You know how it goes. Mom is always the last on the list." Grace sighed as she slipped the ring on. "Well, see, it was meant to be. We're staffing at 9:15. See you there." Karen left Grace to ponder the ring. It looked old. Amazingly, it fit. Grace had large knuckles. Rings never fit. It was the only thing on her hands. Chapter 9, The Path. Kelly put 3-year-old Sam with his father's blonde curly hair and 18-month-old Hazel with their matching strawberry blonde ringlets in front of the television and turned on cartoons. They were always so good, she thought. Too good, too quiet. It just wasn't normal. Excuse me. It just wasn't normal. They were calmer when her father was at work. When their father was home, they were clingy, silent, wary, and different. She wished she had a friend or someone else to watch them, give her a reality check and tell her what they thought. Sam was an independent contractor, so she never knew when he might turn up at the house. It made for an atmosphere of tension. It hadn't always been that way, and she longed for things to return to the way they'd been in the beginning. Kelly was the oldest of 7 children. She had been raised in a strong Latter-day Saint or Mormon household. Her family had been really great. Why hadn't she realized how great it was until it was too late? Everything was always chaos. She hated that at the time. Everyone always wanted her attention, making her feel like she didn't have any room to breathe. Now she realized they just loved her. Her mother babysat more kids than her own 7. Consequently, the house was less than organized, and although it wasn't filthy, everything had been torn, broken, chipped, or cracked. Her mother just laughed and said, "Why waste money on furniture when we can spend it on a trip to the beach?" Every year they'd taken the family to Nicanicum, Oregon with extended family. They would rent a large house, fill it with cousins, and visit for 2 weeks. It was a special place to Kelly before things got so hard. Kelly went to her bedroom and began making her bed and laying out her clothes. Drawing a bath, she felt the hot water, adjusted the temperature, and added bath salts. She gently parted her hair on the side of her head and examined her scalp in the mirror. At least he hadn't hurt her where anyone else could see it. Kelly dated Sam against her mother's wishes. The fighting with her parents had begun. The drinking and parties took over and her grades fell by the wayside. Sam's house was often empty. His parents had been away at work or away together. As soon as she could, she moved into their house. Sam's family had attended another local Christian church, and she had liked it at first. Her parents prayed a lot. They were loud and long prayers, but they used religion as a tool in some of their arguments. They often gave long lectures or forced Sam to pray. It was confusing for Amber to hear them use the scriptures like weapons 1 minute and then watch them ignore commandments like chastity or Christ-like love, or the others the next. In the beginning, she and Sam had fought off and on, but she had yelled as much as he had. When she'd moved into his parents' home, she realized that his mom and dad fought a lot. Then the fighting between her and Sam got worse. She was too proud to go back home. Soon she was pregnant, so quickly they married. She had thought if they could get away from both their parents, things would be better and they wouldn't fight so much. She was all for the move. It was her idea to go to Nicanicum, far away from his family and hers. They saved their money and moved to Nicanicum. Kelly had been sure the distance was the magic answer. She remembered that every time they fought, her mother had said to her, had asked her what she'd done to make him mad at her, or what did she do that made him hit her. His mother had asked that. Nothing was ever his fault. Everything was always her fault, according to his parents and according to Sam. Things were better after they moved to the coast. Locals loved his work, and he was making good money. For a while, they'd fought less, and the fights were bloodier, and she was lonely and isolated. She used to think they wouldn't fight so much if she could just find a way to let things go or be a better wife. But she couldn't. It was hurting her children. She had a constant inner struggle going on, to stay or go. Knowing her children shouldn't watch Sam hit her, she wrestled with the hope that there was a better way to fix things and that she should stay. After all, no one knows Sam better than she did, and he knew her better than anyone else did. Kelly dried herself off and dressed in plain sweats, nothing fancy. Calling attention to herself would upset Sam. She combed her wet hair into a tight ponytail and put on her wedding ring and the CTR ring her parents had sent her for Christmas. Sam had made fun of the CTR ring, but it was a fight that Kelly had won. So, as you can see, normal life kind of goes on, and Kelly is not weak. Kelly was strong enough to leave her parents. Kelly was strong enough to make her own decisions. But one of the things that we know about domestic violence is that oftentimes survivors become isolated from family and friends, either because family and friends are disgusted and frustrated and want things to change and don't like the way the survivor's living, or because the abuser moves them far away and they go thinking it's going to be so much better without all of the input from all the parties. And yet, once they're gone, then it's really hard to reach back and say, wow, I really screwed up. I am not okay. I am not safe here. So why doesn't Kelly just leave? And why doesn't she hit back? If she's strong, if she's got all these qualities, what could be the cost and the consequence of hitting back, or the cost and the consequence of leaving one state to go home to another state? So think about those things and you'll find out in the next chapters.